Hi there, and welcome back to the HE Enabled podcast. This is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, long-term health conditions, and neurodiversity in the British higher education system. I'm Kath, and today I am joined by Dr. Eleanor. Eleanor is a teaching lecturer who recently completed their PhD last academic year. They have not only an interesting and I believe very relatable story, but their experience spans over 3 universities and plenty of time and effort to get where they are today. So, Eleanor, please can you introduce yourself and share a little about your background in higher education?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. I initially grew up in Norfolk, but I went to state schools, and then I went to the University of Warwick for my undergraduate. I did a master's and integrated master's in physics. I then went to the University of Cambridge, where I did my PhD in physics, and I finished that in the last summer, and I'm now a teaching lecturer here at the University of Bath.
Oh, that is wonderful. So you've told me a little bit about your background, but if you're comfortable saying, how did your disability impact your experience of higher education?
Yeah, so the thing that's mostly affected my kind of life was I had a lot of issues with anxiety, particularly when I was younger. So when I initially went to university, I found it really, really difficult to adapt. And generally, I really struggled to kind of function. I've joked often before, especially with my students, that if it wasn't for the sheer amount of paperwork I'd have to fill out to actually leave the university, I probably would have. And so I think a lot of it was, it's been something that's affected me throughout my academic journey, and it still affects me now, but I've kind of got to a point where I can manage it enough that, I've gone from someone who could barely even leave their room at certain points and was terrified of, anything kind of anything and everything, I think, to someone who I now regularly stand up and give, lectures, and so it's been a journey, but managing it a lot better.
Oh, dude, super proud of you, especially for finishing your PhD and getting a teaching post. Congrats on that. That can be a bit tough in the academic environment right now. So, congrats, first of all. But yeah, when you said that, because you were the first person to actually cold message me and be like, "Hey, I want to be on this show," and I was like, "Okay, amazing, I love this." You told me you gave me a summary of your story, and ever since I've been going to be like, "Oh my god, I have this guest on," and in a few weeks it's gonna be amazing. And this is an awesome story. So I think I really appreciate the story. I hope the listeners do too. So I think we need some more information. Let's continue with the questions. So, what was your experience accessing higher education from a disability standpoint?
I think the word that comes to mind was terrifying. Initially, I think I found it very difficult. I think because especially since I felt like I had so much on my mind, you know, with everything in my mind, I was always like, what do I do? Where do I go? What does this involve? And it just meant that everything that should have been easy suddenly became hard, and everything that was hard suddenly felt completely impossible. So there was a lot of me having to email my lecturers and basically saying, like, I physically cannot come into the lab today. I just can't. Which sometimes felt very disheartening to do. I will say there were a lot of people who gave me a lot of support, especially during my undergrad. The kind of some parts of the system worked well for me, other parts didn't. I think the people who were close to me, like my tutor, were fantastic. Unfortunately, the support system was not so great. And I was looking into getting counselling at one point, and they were like, "Oh, there's an 8-month wait list," which was a little bit more difficult. So I think some parts worked, some parts didn't, but yeah, it's just trying to find those that will work and help.
Yeah, I think this actually feeds in very well to the next question. So, did you encounter any obstacles during your experience of higher education? Did you overcome them? And if so, how?
It's a very good question. I think I can take this in a couple of ways, which the first one is during my undergrad, like I said, there was always lots to do, lots of things that I really was struggling with. Like the idea of presentations really scared me, which is very ironic considering now I present for a living.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of it was like finding like having these, trying to remember what the word we had for them then, but we at Bath we call them DAPs, disability access plans. So you could say actually I have anxiety issues, and they would put in things, so you might get to present to a smaller group or things like that. So that was something that really helped me. I think I hadn't really touched on it much, but I think during my PhD, the kind of I'd begun to get much more of a handle on my anxiety, but a lot of the issue was that there wasn't like a strict timetable. And it was, so a lot of the time I was like, I don't know what to do. And I always felt like I was never doing enough because I was like, no one's telling me what to do.
Yeah.
So so at the end of the week, you're like, what did I do? Oh, I didn't do anything. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And I found that actually I started sort of talking to my postdocs, and I was like, can you give me goals? Can you give me like achievable goals that I can like physically tick off a whiteboard? Because that will make me feel good.
Yeah.
It's like a small thing, but
Yeah.
So I think finding what worked for me, a lot of it was finding how I can make my life easier and honestly make myself feel a little bit happier. And I found that when I'm a bit happier, my anxiety is a lot easier to handle. So
No, I get that. I've dealt with a little bit of anxiety myself, and it does get a lot easier to manage once you get the lifestyle stuff right and how to manage that, I feel like. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that. So it's more of a learning your condition kind of thing as opposed to big structural issues.
Exactly. And I think also a lot of it is when you first join university, and even to be honest, while you're at university, your world completely changes.
Yep.
It's, oh, I'm no longer at home. Oh, I have to cook for myself. Oh, all of these different things. And a lot of that will start triggering things to do with your anxiety. So once I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I like these meals and I know how long they take to cook, and I know when I need to do this, and I know what this is, and I know when the bin day is. And it's like, right, my life is kind of stable, which they all seem like minor things, but they're all the things that are constantly in the background, which when those are making you feel really upset, they seem like quite a big thing.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that before as well, 100%. No, that's so valid, honestly. Right. So we've kind of touched on this one a bit, but you said you're a teaching lecturer now. You're obviously now holding a post which involves a lot of public speaking, just inherently. What was your transition to lecturer like? And were there like any pieces of advice that helped you make that transition?
Yeah, I would say it was a bit of a kind of weird thing to change into in some respects. So previously I'd done little bits of teaching during my PhD, but I'd never given very large scale lecture courses. So the great thing is that we've been given a lot of support, so both from the other lecturers in the department and the university as a whole. I found that the thing that helped me the most was practice, in that if you say something enough times, you'll keep saying it again. So I would literally, well, before my first lecture, I think I'd already given it to my flat about 8 times. Uh, but I also think that there's a lot where you start to figure out, okay, what are the things that I can come up with on the spot, and what are the things that I can't. So one thing that I really struggled with at the start was pacing, because I go far too fast. And all my students are like, where's she going? So I found that actually, if I write, so one thing I do is I print my slides and I write timings on them. So I can tell, like, oh, am I going too fast or too slow? But I think in terms of the more general, just presenting to an audience, I think it's understanding that you were once in their shoes, and maybe you sort of you barely slept last night, and that's where they're falling asleep, and it's not because you're doing a bad job. And a lot of it is sort of thinking, I'll give the best lecture I can. And yeah, and also talking to the students. So I try and talk to my students after every lecture, even if it's just chatting to a couple of them. So they could be like, oh, that was good. And it's like, oh, good, excellent. Or they go, oh, it was a little bit hard to understand that. And it's good to kind of feedback and improve, because it's not always an intuitive thing how to give a good lecture.
Yeah, I guess part of it's rehearsal, but when you start to give like entire courses worth of lectures, it's probably not being like a hyper academic parrot, essentially. Repeating each lecture 8 times to your flatmates and stuff probably isn't incredibly viable, I can imagine.
No. Yeah, if I had to do all of them about 8 times, I think I'd be talking electromagnetism in my sleep by now. But it's figuring out the bits of the lectures that are the tricky ones, the bits that you think, right, I really need to make sure that I communicate this in a very clear way, and how can I do that? And other bits where you can sort of talk and you can think, actually, this bit I can talk and I know what I should say. I trust myself enough that I can talk about that. But this bit needs to be done just right. Which I think is something that just comes with practice now. And I'm still learning. I'm still, but it's I think it's a very iterative thing.
Yeah, I think it just shows that you're doing a good job and being thorough as well. It sounds like you have quite a good method to get everything in.
I hope so. But yeah, it's so one thing is so here at Bath, we do a lot of, we really value our student feedback, so we do a lot of like module evaluations and stuff, which on the whole were pretty positive, so I'm very happy. But using that to really sort of figure out what are the bits that I kind of want to improve. But one thing that's kind of relevant to this podcast is that a lot of them actually commented that they noticed at the start I was quite a nervous lecturer, and that my pacing was a bit too fast, and I was a little bit sort of like, oh, what am I doing? But I've managed to calm down a bit, and a lot of them actually commented in the module evaluations. They were like, you can see she's settled.
That's very sweet, actually.
They are lovely. They are really lovely students. But yeah, it's a very rewarding thing.
Yeah, I want to say you're a lecturer. I'm someone who did student voice for like 5 years. This is a call to any undergraduates listening, or any students. Please do your feedback forms. The feedback is used. Yes. I swear. Likewise, so I actually the chair of the SSLC, so the Student Staff Liaison Committee, this year, probably next year as well. And we like go through these forms and we discuss them with the students. We try and identify like trends, like what the students like. Oh, you like it when we give you slides in advance, and then try and convince the other staff to do the same. So really, it's really good to get engaged with that kind of thing, the SSLC or student voice or whatever kind of equivalent your university has. Yeah, do your feedback forms, guys. That's your homework. Right, we should get back on the question, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
I love these tangents that I go on my guests, but I always look at my timer. I'm like, ooh, I think we can cheese it. Do some rapid fires at the end. So, we chatted a little bit about this before we started recording, but were there any clubs, societies, or initiatives that made a significant positive difference to your experience of higher education?
Yes, absolutely. So I knew I should join a society because in my first year of undergrad I was like it basically got to kind of January and I was like, this is not working, something needs to change, and if the university's not going to change, then I will. So one of the things was I was like, I'm going to join a society, and to be honest, I looked at the list and I was like, I don't really have any major hobbies. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, I do ice skating." I was like, "Right, there we go."
That'll do it.
So, yeah, why not? I've never ice skated before. I have to admit, I'm not very good. I fall over less than I did at the start. Uh, but I think the key thing for me was that it was so the ice rink was off campus. So immediately it was a chance for me to get off the campus, a bit out of the bubble. But also it was a lot of new people, so it was an opportunity to like chat to people, and it was also something that wasn't it was something I could do where my success in it wasn't tied to my academics, and it was something that I could work at and I could feel proud of, and there wasn't any expectation beyond that. So it was like, great, I can now skate forward, across the rink, and I won't fall over. Great. That has no bearing on my academics, no bearing on my degree, but I achieved something this week. And I think having that kind of reward and success in something other than academics is good. And just chatting to people. We went on society trips, and it was really good for helping me break out my shell a little bit.
That's really good, especially because you don't want all your eggs in one basket, right? Because success will never be linear. That will never be linear. And if you put all your eggs in one basket, the moment things are no longer linear upwards and going a bit downwards for a bit, that can affect someone a lot.
Yeah, and I think so. This was something that I think specifically came up again during my PhD. Was it's very easy in a PhD to tie your self-worth to your PhD progress, and that's a very bad thing to do. Yeah. Especially as an experimentalist. A lot of things in my PhD didn't work. I feel like I could title it, 5 things that didn't work and the one that did. But it wasn't for lack of trying. But it's very hard when, you do things and they don't work and you feel like, oh, it's my fault. And it's like, no, you're trying just as hard as everyone else. It's just that the science said no today. So I think that's a really big lesson that it took me quite a while to learn, and it definitely was inflamed by my anxiety, is that my academic worth and my personal worth are not the same thing.
I don't know why, but the first thing that came into my head was the 5 things that went wrong and the one that did. Be a great title for a rom-com. I'm just going to leave that there.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to leave that just in the ether now.
I was going to say, maybe I need to rewrite my thesis now. Maybe I need to change the title.
A retrospective.
Yes, and as it's a colon after my title. I think
the addendum and the addendum and the addendum. One day it'll be fine. 17 titles. I heard that was very popular in the 1800s. Book titles.
Yes. Yeah.
Mary Shelley style. Anyway. Right, this next question is one I like to ask all of my guests. I'll always get different responses to this. Answer it as you will. Have you ever experienced any instances of your disability proving helpful in any way in a higher education setting?
That's a really good question. I would say yes, because I think when we talk about anxiety, we often refer to it in a very vague form. And I think the thing with anxiety is that it's anxiety because there's a force behind it. So a lot of mine was tied to, I want to do well. I want to do well academically. And so there was that push. It gave me a push. It was, but I think the other thing as well as that is that it makes you identify what you want. So I often realize if I'm beginning to feel anxious about something, I'm like, what is it specifically that's causing me an anxiety and why? And normally it's because there's something that I want to happen or I want to do. And so I go, okay, I shouldn't be getting anxious about it, but at least I'm very keenly aware that this is something that I want. So the biggest example of that was when I was applying for jobs. I was applying for quite a few different jobs. And I knew I liked teaching. And so that was why I applied for teaching jobs. But I was also thinking like, oh, should I maybe apply for a postdoc? And one of the early teaching jobs that I applied for, I got rejected from. And I felt really anxious about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, actually, the reason I'm feeling anxious is because that was the one I really, really wanted.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I don't want to do research. And it sort of clicked into place. So I think listening to my gut and then telling it to calm down is a lot of my approach. So
I did some research on anxiety when I was experiencing some myself, and I was like, oh, it's just like my body's fight or flight turned to like 1,100 instead of 10. Like if you listen to what it's saying.
Exactly. It's fight or flight, but there is something behind it. It's not a bear anymore, but but there is something. And I think often identifying what that is not only helps you figure out, okay, why am I getting anxious about this? How can I stop being anxious? But it also sometimes helps you figure out, okay, there's something else at play. Like, why is my brain anxious about this? And it can help you figure out what your brain is thinking on a deeper level, if that makes sense. That sounded far too sophisticated for me being like, this thing makes me happy and this one makes me scared.
You know what? You have a PhD. You're allowed to be verbose. So I actually love this. But no, I think you mentioned there like there's no bear, and I totally agree. Like people are designed. The hardware that people have is not compatible with the society necessarily. And because there's not necessarily any immediate threats to us, we hope not, your brain just starts sometimes just making vague, anxious threats to itself, and it sucks.
Well, I think as well, I think it's that a lot of the times the things that can make us anxious nowadays are often longer scale things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think our brains are very good for the short term things, as you say, fight or flight. You see a bear, you run.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I don't think or certainly not my brain, we're less good at the longer term things. It's like, okay, I have a deadline coming up. I'm feeling really anxious about it, rather than like, yeah. I don't know. Different people's brains work differently. I know some people who thrive on long-term stress and deadlines, but I am not one of these people, sadly.
Can we make a club?
Yes.
We'll make a club that will just be us. It's like anxiety bad.
Yeah.
Please give firm deadlines.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time it's, I kind of try and trick my brain into giving myself earlier deadlines. I put deadlines in my calendar to be like, okay, my main deadline is this date, but I'm going to set myself mini deadlines to make myself a little bit anxious so that I don't get big anxious of the big one.
Yeah, I would do that. Unfortunately, I tell a lot of people my ADHD is stronger than my willpower sometimes. So they're like, deadline's still down the road. My time blindness can deal with that later, which is probably where we differ. But yeah, not necessarily something I can relate to, but hopefully it helps someone. Right, we have only 3 questions left. We are killing it for time right now. I'm loving this.
We're just efficient.
We have the capacity for so many tangents, Eleanor. Right.
Oh, this is simultaneously a wonderful thing and probably not so wonderful, depending on how long your episodes need to be. But I am all for the tangent.
It's a good problem to have. Right, let's go to the next question. We're gonna zoom out for a sec, and we're gonna talk about society.
Oh,
Um,
ooh.
Ooh. How do you think that we can improve the experience of higher education as both individuals and a society?
Oh, okay. This is a fantastic question. Um, so I think the first way I can talk about it is in my position right now. I'm a teaching lecturer, so I've kind of jumped to the opposite side of the fence quite recently, which is a very eye-opening thing. And I think that as an individual, I'm really trying to be a point of contact. So talking to the students about it, I've done presentations and sort of mentioned about it, and I'm like, it's a thing. When I was your age, I was stressed beyond belief. And I think being quite open about it, because I cannot remember. I mean, I've had plenty of lecturers, during my undergrad. I cannot remember a single one of them who talked about, um, you know, a mental health problem or a disability or anything like that. Um, which I'm sure some of them probably did, but they always seemed like on another platform, and I was like, actually, we're all people too.
Yeah.
So I think trying to kind of tell students it's okay. Everyone kind of has similar things, and I think trying to be a kind of point that students can come talk to. One thing is, like, on a personal level, I really sort of read up on the kind of support structure at Warwick. Not Warwick. I'm not at Warwick anymore. I'm at Bath now.
Yay!
um, Yay! Getting my unis mixed up. But what is the support structure? What is the kind of way to refer people so that, if a student came to me, like I did when I was younger, I know what to do. I know where I can help them. So I think on an individual level, I think that's the kind of approach that I take. And I think more as a society, I think being aware, being more aware. I think sometimes the students don't necessarily understand what the other students are going through, and I think sometimes just them being a little bit more sensitive and aware. And I mean, the same also goes for lecturers. I think some are great, some are very sensitive, but I think some can be less sensitive, both from my experience and from what I've heard. So I think just being gentle, being understanding, and trying to be helpful in signposting and things, I think are all beneficial things that we can do.
Yeah, I mean that entire principle I think is one of the key reasons why the show exists, is because I was feeling quite like kind of alone, right? Because I just failed my masters. I was like, oh, this is affecting me. There's no one really sharing their story beyond like there's no singular platform for it. It would be cool if we could normalize this, and that was kind of the entire premise, right? So hopefully there's more stuff happening from other people too, and everything can kind of be normalized a little bit more.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I have actually. Can I put you on the spot for a second?
Oh, okay.
So I had a guest last week, Kathy, wonderful person. Catherine's story. Sorry, use their full name. And this episode isn't out yet, so you won't know this. They really advocated for kind of having neurodiversity disability training for academic supervisors by default. And I was just wondering what you kind of thought of that from the teaching side.
I think that's a fantastic idea. So when I joined the university, we had a whole bunch of training programs, and some of them were on the pastoral side. So about the student support services, about what to do, how to approach things if students talk to you, and there were like some quite specific ones. So across a wide range of things, I believe there were some for LGBT issues, which is also it's fantastic for a university to recognize that.
Absolutely.
But I think actually having ones for neurodiverse or mental health thing, I think that's a really good idea. I think particularly for those in very student facing roles like myself, I think it's very important that we recognize these issues that the students may have, but more than that is that we know what we can do to help, what is within our sort of sphere of things that we can do and where we can refer them. So I think that's a fantastic idea. Might have to put that one forward.
Please do. If we can get more people to suggest it, the better, right? Like, I don't work at uni right now, so hands up. I need I need people to share this. All right. Let's wrap up with our last couple questions, and then we can both have a nice restful evening. So, we've touched on this a lot, but I think it's nice to address it in its own question. So what are you doing nowadays, and how have your past experiences, kind of specifically in higher education, affected this?
Yeah, so I think the key thing is that I'm now on the other side of the fence. I'm now one of the staff, and I think the key thing is looking through everything I do that involves the students with the eyes of the younger version of me, and thinking, is there something that I could do to make it easier for people who were like me? Is there something, what can I do to make their lives a little bit easier? Because I think that's part of my job. I think to try and make my lectures, my course, to try and make it accessible for a whole range of different things. And so I've been trying to read around and research how to do this. So I'm acutely aware of the issues with anxiety, but for example, I had no idea about making things dyslexia friendly. So I was looking up that, or color blindness completely went over my head. I hadn't thought of that. So trying really hard to make things accessible. I think that's kind of my guiding principle, I think, at the moment. But I think a lot of it is feeding back on what were things like for me as a student, and what did I find difficult.
Yeah, I remember because I did undergraduate research, and I went to a seminar one day on posters. I'd already done like 2 conferences at this point. It was meant to be, like Kitty's first lecture on posters. I was just like really privileged. And I was there after, like, hey, what about like colorblind like backgrounds on posters? I had the same lecture like a week later, and it was added to the slides, and I felt incredibly vindicated. I will say.
But absolutely, and it's like I wrote a whole load of notes to accompany my course, and then I had it black text on white background, and I had like quite a small font, and then I think it was a fellow lecturer of mine was like, actually, literally it takes like two minutes. You can change the background color, change the text color, make it bigger, and suddenly it's so much easier for them to read. And I was like, it's such a small thing, but actually it will make a big difference to those who really need it.
Yeah, I work with kind of dyslexic kids for a living for the most part, and I feel like you change the slide color, it's like giving them like one big reading ruler, essentially, like it's all blue and they can just like read it a lot better. I will say that the amount of like conscientious work that you're putting into this, you're like a one person signpost, like, hey, if you're anxious, go study physics at Bath. Go do that. We need you at the front of every open day.
we have actually had the open days this week. So but I will say this, that a lot of this, I've learned through the fellow lecturers there, and some of the courses. So Bath's doing a pretty great job already. I'm just learning. But Bath is great. All the unis I've been at are great, so I could thoroughly recommend them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the big thing for me is trying to use my experiences for good, for the better.
Yeah.
And thinking, how can I actually, help and make my course as good as it can be for them.
Yeah.
Because if they have at least one good course, then I'm happy.
Yeah. I think that's something we can all aspire to just use our own stories to fuel some kind of compassion. Right. We are nearly there. We got one question left.
Only one.
So many questions, so many tangents. We've basically made it. Right. So, final question. You've obviously done a lot of stuff over the past few years. You've been on both sides of the fence and obviously got through a lot to be where you are. First of all, really proud. Yay. Second of all, if we were to take all of that and we were kind of gonna put it into one message, what is the one key takeaway that you would like listeners to remember from your story?
Oh, oh gosh. I would say growth is small and incremental. And like everything that's small and incremental, it's not always just easy to see it when it happens. I think there's been a lot of times when I'm like, I'm not getting better, and all of this, but actually it's like looking back, I'm like, I've come so far. But even kind of comparing the start of my PhD to the start of my undergrad, it's like, it was worlds different. So I think it's a case of, things are changing, you are changing all the time. It's just that sometimes it's hard to notice and it takes time. But that's not to say it's not happening.
Yeah. Journal.
Journaling's great. Love
Yeah.
journaling. Very big advocate for journaling.
Yeah, where was I 5 years ago? Oh, wait, my entire life changed.
Reading my old journals is crazy. I was doing that in the summer before I started my job. I was I went back home to my parents and I was like, oh my God, things have changed so much. But journaling is great.
Yeah, but you are doing, it sounds wonderfully. And it's, I hope it's all going well, especially with a very what I assume is a hectic end of year or just finished kind of thing.
So students are done, exams are marked, so it's now a little bit more restful for a couple of months.
Enjoy
and then
some
it all
of your
begins again.
enjoy some of your own research as well. Right, we're done.
Amazing.
We finished the questions. I'm going to do my little spiel and then we will stop this recording and have a nice little chat. Right. HE Enabled is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodiversity, and long-term health conditions in the British higher education system. I am always looking for more guests, so if you ever want to come on, please get in touch at henabled@gmail.com. A link to the email is also in the show's description. All right, Dr. Eleanor, thank you so much.
Yay! No, thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you so much. Yeah.